Can you imagine being disowned by your own mother, all because you finally said enough to being her personal ATM? That's exactly what happened to me last Thanksgiving, and trust me, it was just the beginning of the most insane family drama I've ever lived through. My name's Sam, I'm 28, and for years, family holidays felt like a performance. You know the drill. Fake smiles, awkward small talk, just counting down the minutes until I could escape. My family? Always complicated. But last year? It went nuclear. I finally hit my breaking point, realizing I was practically carrying them all financially. My mom, my older brother James, even my Aunt Linda, they'd been bleeding me dry for years. Loans, emergency cash, gifts that never saw a return. And for too long, I let it happen. Honestly, I used to be happy to help. But after a few brutal months of constant requests, the weight of it all started to crush me. My job pays decently, but it's not like I'm rolling in money. I had my own bills, my own future to worry about. Yet, every single time one of them asked for cash, a wave of guilt would wash over me if I even thought about saying no. "Oh, Sam, I don't know what I'd do without you," my mom would dramatically declare, her voice dripping with sorrow as she called me for the third time that week to borrow a few hundred. And I'd cave, every single time, feeling bad that I seemed to have so much and they had so little. But what truly stung was the entitlement that had festered over time. My mom? She never once thanked me. Not once. It was always, "I need this," or "I need that." Never, "Thank you for helping." It was infuriating. And James? He's 35, still living with mom, and can barely hold a job for more than a few months. Every time I dared ask about his plans, I'd get some vague, airy answer about working on himself. Deep down, I knew he wasn't doing a thing to change. He just sat around, waiting for his next handout. And then there was Aunt Linda, who perfected the art of borrowing money and simply forgetting to return it. "Sam, can you help me with my rent this month? Just this once, I promise it'll be the last time." Spoiler alert, it never was. My absolute breaking point arrived one night. I got home from work, exhausted, and saw a text from my mom. It was one of those texts, unnecessarily long, rambling, about something that should have been simple. She needed another, small loan to cover her bills. I didn't even want to read the rest because I knew it would be the same old song and dance. But I did. And the kicker? She wrote, "If you can't help me, I'll be in a really bad spot. You know how much I depend on you." That last sentence hit me like a ton of bricks. It was a manipulative gut punch. She was actually making me responsible for her entire financial well-being. I was her lifeline, her safety net, and here I was, barely able to keep my own head above water. That night, sitting in my living room, staring at my phone, I had a moment of startling clarity. I realized I was letting myself be used, completely and utterly. I was the family ATM, and they didn't care one bit about what I needed. They just expected me to be there, pouring out my time and energy, without a second thought for my own struggles. So, I made a decision. A terrifying, monumental decision. I was done. Done being their financial safety net. Done being the one they relied on for everything. And absolutely done being guilt-tripped into helping them when it drained every ounce of life from me. I didn't tell anyone right away. I wanted to avoid a massive confrontation. I thought maybe I could just slowly pull back, stop answering their calls and texts as often. But of course, that didn't work. They kept reaching out, more insistent than ever. And I, for the first time, kept saying no. First, it was a polite, "Sorry, I can't help right now." Then it escalated to, "I'm not able to lend you money anymore." Finally, I just stopped responding altogether. That's when my mom called. It was the day before Thanksgiving, and she was in full-on panic mode. "Sam, what's going on? Why aren't you answering my calls? I really need you," she cried, her voice practically desperate. But I didn't care anymore. The well was dry. I calmly told her that I wasn't in a position to help anymore, and that they needed to figure things out on their own. Her response was not what I expected. "You're no longer welcome here," she spat, her voice chillingly cold. "After everything I've done for you, this is how you repay me? I can't believe you'd abandon your own family like this." Those words cut deep right to my core. My own mother, disowning me, telling me I wasn't welcome at Thanksgiving after everything I'd sacrificed for her and the family. It felt like a brutal slap in the face. But I refused to let her see how much it hurt. Instead, I simply told her I was done, and then I hung up. The next day, I didn't go to Thanksgiving dinner. I stayed home, alone, nursing a drink and scrolling through social media, watching as my family posted their usual picture-perfect Thanksgiving feast. My mom, Aunt Linda, and James, all huddled together, happy as could be, without me. I felt a chaotic mix of emotions: anger, a deep sense of betrayal, a little sadness, sure. But mostly it was relief. It felt like a crushing weight had finally been lifted from my shoulders. But the drama? Oh, that was far from over. 2 weeks later, I got a text from James. "Hey man, I'm really sorry about what happened. Mom's been freaking out, and I think she just didn't understand. Can you help us out again, just for the holidays?" I didn't even respond. It was the same old story, repeating endlessly. They expected me to give, and when I stopped, they simply couldn't handle it. But that wasn't the end of it. Oh no, it got worse. Aunt Linda reached out next. "Sam, I don't know what's going on with you, but you've got to come to Thanksgiving next year. Mom's devastated, we all are. Please just come back. Your family." They were begging. And the worst part? I knew in my heart they didn't actually care about me. They cared about the money I could give them. They wanted me to come back, to be the same old Sam who just handed out cash every time they asked. A week passed, and I held firm to my decision. I didn't answer any calls, didn't reply to any messages. My family had pushed me too far, and now I was pulling away, definitively. It wasn't easy, I'll admit. I had moments where I second-guessed myself, wondering if I'd gone too far, if I'd made a terrible mistake. After all, they were still my family. But every single time, I remembered how they had used me, without a second thought for my well-being, and the doubt faded. I'd been more than generous with them for years, and it was crystal clear they didn't value me. They just valued what I could give. I spent Christmas alone. It was strange, unfamiliar, but also incredibly peaceful. I cooked myself a nice dinner, curled up with a good book, and watched a few movies. No drama, no desperate requests for money, just me. Finally feeling like I could breathe again. I didn't need to be there, playing the role of the financial savior anymore. For once, I was just Sam, and that was enough. But then, just as I thought the storm had finally passed, the messages started rolling in. At first, it was a few passive-aggressive texts from my mom, the kind where she pretended she wasn't angry, but clearly was. "It's really sad you're missing out on the holidays," one text read. "Your Aunt Linda and James said they miss you. Maybe it's time to reconsider." That text was quickly followed by another. "I'm just worried about you, Sam. This isn't like you." I didn't respond, but the guilt still lingered, a tiny, annoying voice in the back of my mind. I could feel myself starting to weaken. Maybe I was being too harsh. After all, they were my family, and the holidays were supposed to be about togetherness, right? Then came the phone call. It was New Year's Eve, and I was making myself a nice dinner, trying to enjoy the last night of the year. My phone rang and I saw it was from my mom. I hesitated for a long moment before answering, my heart pounding in my chest. "Sam," my mom's voice was strained, almost pleading. "I've been thinking. I know I said things I shouldn't have, and I've been really upset, but I want you to know that I'm sorry. We all miss you. It's been hard without you. Please, can we talk? Maybe you can come over and we can fix things." It felt like a punch to the gut. After everything, she was still pulling the "we miss you" card. I could tell she wasn't really sorry for how she treated me. She was sorry because I wasn't there to pay her bills anymore. But I had to admit, a tiny, foolish part of me still wanted to believe she cared. So I listened. Sam, it's been hard on all of us. We all need you, especially James. He's having a really tough time. He doesn't know how to manage things, and without you, we're lost. I was quiet for a long, heavy moment, the weight of her words hanging in the air. I wasn't sure if I could trust her. It was the same old pattern. They needed me, but only when they had a problem. When things were going well for them, I was practically invisible. Finally, I spoke up, trying to keep my voice steady. You can't keep treating me like this, Mom. I'm not your ATM. I've given you everything I have, and it's never enough. I'm not the one who's messed up here. You are. You've been using me for years, and I'm done. I've made my decision. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. I could hear her breathing heavily, and for a moment, I thought she might cry. But she didn't. Instead, she said, in the most venomous tone I'd ever heard from her, "Fine. You can stay away then. Don't come crawling back when you realize that family is all you've got. You'll regret this, Sam." Her words stung. Yes, but something profound shifted inside me. I wasn't angry anymore. I was calm. It was the first time I'd ever truly stood up for myself like that, and it felt surprisingly good. I hung up without another word. The next few weeks were a blur of new routine and newfound peace. James didn't reach out anymore, which I expected. He wasn't really capable of understanding that I was tired of being the one to fix everything for him. Aunt Linda sent a few more passive-aggressive texts, but I ignored them. I stayed firm in my decision, focusing on reclaiming my life. But then things took an unexpected turn. One morning, I was at work when I got a call from an unfamiliar number. I hesitated before answering, but something deep down told me it was important. I picked up. "Sam?" The voice on the other end was shaky, and I immediately recognized it as my mom's. "Sam, please, I need your help." I froze. My heart skipped a beat. For a moment, I thought I had misheard her. "Help," I repeated, incredulous. "After everything, you've got the nerve to call me for help?" There was silence on the other end of the line. My mom's voice wavered when she spoke again. "I know. I've asked too much. I've been wrong, but Sam, I've got no one else. Please." I could hear the sheer desperation in her voice, but I wasn't ready to fall for it again. She'd played this game for so long that I could see right through it. But I also knew that I was at a crossroads. This was the moment I had been waiting for, the moment I had to decide if I was going to give in to the guilt that had haunted me for years, or if I was finally going to show them that I was done. Done being the family bank, done being the one they could always count on to bail them out. I sat in silence for a long moment, feeling the immense weight of the decision pressing down on me. Finally, I spoke, my voice firm. "No. I'm done." I could hear her gasp in disbelief, but I continued. "I'm sorry you're in this situation, but this is not my problem anymore. You need to figure this out without me." I hung up, and for the first time in years, I felt a strange, profound sense of peace. My family had pushed me to the edge, but I had finally taken control. I wasn't going to let them manipulate me anymore. I knew the fallout from this would be messy. I knew they would be angry, maybe even hate me for it. But for once, I wasn't afraid of their reaction. I wasn't afraid of the guilt. I was finally truly free. The days that followed were oddly quiet. No calls, no texts. It felt like my family had finally given up, or at least, that's what I told myself. I went on with my life, trying to put the whole thing behind me. For once, I was living for me, and not for the expectations that had always been forced onto me. I focused more on work, took up some hobbies I'd been putting off, and started hanging out with friends I hadn't seen in ages. But the silence wasn't meant to last. A week later, as I was leaving work, I got another call. This time, it wasn't from my mom, but from an unfamiliar number. I answered it reluctantly, a strange pit forming in my stomach. "Hello, Sam?" A deep, hesitant voice said, and immediately I recognized it. It was James, my older brother. I hadn't heard from him in months, so his sudden call felt like another punch to the gut. "I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I need your help." I couldn't believe it. I wasn't even angry at first. I just felt a deep, exhausted kind of sadness. James had always been like this, unable to handle life's responsibilities, constantly looking for someone to bail him out. I had spent years giving him that help, but it had drained me in ways I wasn't even sure how to explain. So hearing from him now, after everything, was the last thing I expected. "What's going on?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. My instinct was to just hang up, but a part of me wanted to hear him out. Maybe, just maybe, he'd changed. Maybe he'd finally figured out how to take responsibility for his own life. I messed up," he said, his voice hesitant. "Big time. I don't know who else to turn to. Mom isn't helping. She's too angry at me, and now I've got these bills piling up, and my rent is overdue. I don't know what to do." I could hear the desperation in his voice, and I almost felt a twinge of pity for him. But then it hit me. He was doing exactly what he always did, trying to make me feel bad enough to give in, to rescue him from the consequences of his own actions. The exact same pattern I had fallen for over and over again. "You know what, James?" I said, taking a deep breath to steady my nerves. "I'm really sorry you're in this situation. I truly am. But I can't keep doing this for you." I heard him sigh on the other end of the line. "Sam, please. I don't know what else to do." "I've been there for you," I continued, my voice unwavering. "I've given you so much, and you just keep making the same mistakes over and over again. I can't keep bailing you out." There was a long silence, and I could feel the tension growing. Then, in a voice that was almost broken, James said, "So that's it? You're really done?" I didn't answer right away. I was torn. The old part of me wanted to tell him everything would be fine, that I would help him like I always had. But the new part of me, the part that was tired of being used, was firm. I had to stick to my decision. "Yeah, James. I'm done," I said softly, but with absolute finality. "I can't keep doing this for you. You have to figure it out on your own. You're an adult now." I could hear him trying to hold it together, but I knew I had struck a nerve. "Fine," he muttered, his voice barely audible. "I guess I'll figure it out." I hung up before I could second-guess myself, and for a moment, it felt like I'd done the right thing. But then, not 10 minutes later, I got a message. It was from my mom. The text read, "You've hurt James more than you know. This is on you now. You'll regret this." I stared at it for a while, my emotions swirling. Part of me wanted to reply, to tell her how much she had hurt me, how much she had taken from me. But I didn't. I had already made up my mind. It didn't matter how much they tried to guilt-trip me, manipulate me, or shame me into helping. This was my life now, and I wasn't going to let them control it anymore. The next day, I woke up to find several missed calls from both my mom and James, a few messages too. I didn't check them. I didn't need to. I knew exactly what they'd say: guilt, regret, pleas for help. I couldn't help but feel a small twinge of anger. How could they still think I was the one in the wrong here? I'd given them everything I had, sacrificed my time, my energy, my resources to help them, and yet they couldn't even understand why I was walking away. But that was their problem now, not mine. The next week, I received a package in the mail. It wasn't anything I expected. When I opened it, I found a letter. It was from my mom. The letter was brief, but impactful. It read, "You've made your decision, Sam, but know this. When you need family, we won't be there, and you'll be alone. We hope you understand the cost of your choice." I read the letter over and over, my emotions in a whirlwind. I felt a cold sting in my chest, a deep ache of something lost. But there was also something else, a strange, unsettling sense of relief. This was their final, desperate attempt to guilt-trip me, to pull me back into their twisted dynamic. But I was too far gone now. I couldn't let them pull me back into their web of manipulation. I crumpled the letter up and threw it in the trash. It felt oddly liberating. The more they tried to pull me back, the more I realized that I wasn't the one who needed them. It was them who needed me, and they had taken that for granted for far too long. But as I sat there, a nagging thought crept into my mind. What if they tried something else? Something even more desperate? What if their tactics escalated beyond just words? I didn't know yet, but I was ready for whatever they would throw my way. This time, I wouldn't back down. Not for them, not for anyone. A few days passed, and I managed to push the constant worry about my family to the back of my mind. I was living my life, my real life, without the heavy weight of their expectations on my shoulders. But then, something truly unexpected happened. One afternoon, I got another call. This time it was from my mom. For a brief moment, I considered not answering, but a part of me, despite everything, still wanted to know what they would say next. So I picked up. "Sam?" My mom's voice was calm, but strained, almost like she was treading carefully. "We need to talk." I took a deep breath. I had steeled myself for this. "What's this about?" I asked, my voice steady, even though my heart was pounding. I know you're angry," she said, "and I know you think I've been unfair to you, but we need to talk about James. He's in real trouble." There was the guilt trip. My stomach clenched, but I didn't let it show. "Mom, you can't keep putting this on me," I said, my voice firm. "I've done everything for him, and he keeps messing up. I can't keep bailing him out." "I know," she whispered, her voice suddenly breaking, genuine emotion seeping through. "But you have to understand, Sam. James isn't just over his head. He's spiraling. And he's been arrested." I froze. The words hung in the air like a physical weight I couldn't escape. I hadn't been expecting this. My heart started to race. "Arrested? What happened?" There was a long pause, and when she finally spoke again, it was in a quieter, almost defeated tone. "He was caught in some kind of financial scam. He trusted the wrong people, and now he's facing charges. They're threatening to send him to jail." A cold chill ran down my spine. James had always been reckless, irresponsible, but this felt different. I didn't know what to feel. Anger? Sympathy? Guilt? "Is he okay?" I asked despite myself. "Physically, yeah," she said, but I could hear the crushing weight of everything in her voice. "But he's not okay, Sam. And I don't know what to do. He needs you. We need you." I bit my lip. I had been waiting for them to pull something like this, a grand gesture of manipulation, but hearing the raw desperation in her voice, it hit harder than I expected. It wasn't just about money or favors anymore. It was about something far more serious, something that felt like it could change everything. "Mom, I don't know what you want me to do," I said, my voice faltering slightly. "I've already given him everything. I've given you everything, and you just keep asking for more." "I know," she whispered, almost as if ashamed. "I never meant for it to get this far. But you're the only one who can help him now. Please, Sam. He's your brother." For a moment, the silence between us stretched on, heavy with unspoken words, years of resentment, and a flicker of hope. I felt my resolve wavering. Part of me wanted to just walk away, to keep living my life without the constant pull of their problems. But another part of me, the part that had always been there for them, was fighting the urge to say no. "You've hurt me too, Mom," I said quietly, the words aching to be spoken. "All these years I've been the one you leaned on, the one you took from. But no one ever asked how I felt. No one ever cared about what I needed." "I'm sorry, Sam," she said, And there was no anger in her voice this time, just deep, profound regret. I know I've made mistakes. But you're all I have left. Please, just think about it. James needs you and I don't know what I'd do without you. The weight of her words hung in the air, and for the first time, I started to feel like I was the one being tested. I had walked away once, definitively, but now it felt like the stakes were impossibly higher. I didn't want to be the person who abandoned family in their darkest hour, but I also couldn't go back to being the person who was always expected to fix everything. Let me think about it, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I understand, she replied, and we hung up. The following days were a whirlwind inside my head. I found myself constantly replaying the conversation in my mind. I couldn't shake the image of James, alone, in trouble and desperate. I was torn between wanting to help, truly help, and not wanting to fall back into the same old destructive patterns. But I also knew something had to change. This cycle, this burden couldn't go on forever. So I did what I promised myself I wouldn't. I gave in. But this time, it was different. I reached out to a lawyer, not to bail James out completely, but to help him navigate the legal trouble he'd gotten himself into. I couldn't let him face the full, unmitigated consequences of his actions alone, not with jail time looming. But this wasn't the same as before. I wasn't just giving him money to make the problem disappear. I wasn't solving all his problems. I was setting boundaries, clear and firm. I was doing what I needed to do to ensure that if things ever got better, they would stay better and on my terms. And while things weren't perfect, James was still, well, the same old James in many ways, and my mom was still holding on to some of her old expectations. I realized something profound. It wasn't about completely cutting them off, not entirely. It was about finding balance. I could help, I could be there for them, but I wouldn't lose myself in the process. In the end, I learned that sometimes taking care of family doesn't mean giving them everything they ask for. It means knowing when to step back, when to set boundaries that protect your own well-being, and when to demand respect for yourself and for the life you've painstakingly built. It's a hard lesson, but one that finally set me free.